Hey, Dad.
No blame.
No blame.
Pull these notes up here.
Ooh, you got notes.
Well, I can't remember things. My memory is really good and it's really short. Quoting Peter Evans, if you happen to watch these, man, I got that from you.
Happen to watch these? Oh, is he's somebody you know personally?
Yeah.
What was it? My memory's really good, but really short.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Uh,
All right. Feels weird being on different sides, man. I have to admit, I'm going to be super self-conscious because I know my mustache bald spot right in the light. That's okay, though.
That's cool. My hairline doesn't grow as evenly on this side.
This is my bad side.
Yeah. I literally grow almost no facial hair on the right side of my face.
Really?
Either. Yeah. While I was in Costa Rica, I let it grow out for the additional 3 weeks I was there. I let it grow out for 3 weeks while I was here. Full beard on my left side now. This looks like I'm 12 years old. I don't know.
How weird. I think I kind of do the same thing. I wonder if this bald spot. I don't know. I have a bald spot somewhere in my stupid neck beard too, but that's okay. Maybe this will make us man up and grow hair.
Oh yeah. gonna berate my genetics until they change.
Berate it, expose it to public ridicule until it fixes itself.
Yeah.
That's funny. That is funny.
Might work.
All right. Well, I don't think anybody would have ever known that you went to Costa Rica for an entire month.
That was the goal, right? Yeah.
That was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Surprise. You come back tan.
Yeah.
Come back ready. Loose. Ready to go.
Yeah. There will be a significant change in my skin tone, huh? Between the last one and this one. Yeah. All right. Well, cool.
It's good. Which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Like you went and got a spray tan for anybody that really is curious.
Nah, it's really there. Real.
It's really there.
Natural.
Yeah. All right, man. You mentioned in the last pod. Also, yeah, you mentioned in the last pod The Big Short.
Mm-hmm.
You watched The Big Short while you were gone.
Yep.
Tell me about it.
Big Short premise is they're following the guy who's leading the discovery of the big problem in our financial system that's specifically happening around the mortgages and how they were packaging up really bad mortgages and selling them off as these profitable instruments in the stock market. And really they were packages of basically, as they described them, like dog shit mixed with cat poop in most cases.
Yep.
And it's because they were selling, well, the approval process was so negligent at the end, where it was actually being, like the loans were being provided, that anyone was getting a loan, even if they didn't have a real name. People's dogs were getting loans, like illegal immigrants were getting loans. And then that poor system was packaging up all that bad business and selling it to legitimate investors. And anyway, so it follows that, and it just goes through the whole process of how this guy is borderline genius savant, and he's made discoveries through simple analysis by actually looking at all the numbers and the facts and being like, this is obviously messed up. But then the whole system around him relies on like the system, and they trust it so much that then they say, you couldn't be wrong. And so they take his bet, and he makes off like a bandit.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of cost along the way, and it just goes through how all that. So, said a different way, The Big Short is about the 2007, 2008 financial crisis and a lot of the higher up happening. Exchanging of money in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what big lessons did you learn? Anything?
Man, well, the first one, I guess, since it tied in something to my history, was I had been told the story about whoever Christian Bale's playing in that movie. I've been told the story of that guy while sitting at a coffee shop one day from my boss. Like, oh, makes sense. The reason why he told it to me, I guess I would have to ask him, but it was shortly after I had sat him down and showed him my Communication 4.0 deck and strategy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it had essentially a huge reorganizing of companies and how administration structures would work and all this blah, blah, blah. And wow, great. Let me tell you about this story. He told me about the guy and how he had to hide out basically for months and months, and people were trying to get a hold of him, and no one believed him, and blah blah blah. And I took it as either I'm not, he's saying like this guy was really good and really smart at what he does, and he won, or you're not that guy. And I don't know what he meant, but maybe he
Yeah.
was just telling me the story. Anyway, I got that from it, and it made me start trying to formulate why I think Skill Wallet is important and what the big crisis is that's impending. That why I keep thinking Skill Wallet will be essential. Couple anecdotes around it. I was talking with some people I watched the movie with, and they're more senior at this point. I'd say they're retirement age, but they still do things. And they were like, our financial system and our money system is going to fail, and we're going to go back to the gold standard, and blah blah blah. And my initial argument was, if I can't eat gold, first of all. And so if our money system and our country falls apart, why does anyone care about gold? We won't.
Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reformatted it to them as the golden standard.
Yeah.
So I totally made it up on the spot. It made sense after I said it, and I was like,
okay.
Golden standard. The physics definition of work is
force times distance.
Yeah. Okay. So literally proof of work, real work,
Proof
physical work.
Well, I gave you the physics equation for it.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I needed, and I'm extrapolating on top of that.
Good. We didn't plan that. I just kind of pulled that one out.
Yeah, so. but that's it. And today, people get paid for what we call work. That's really just thought.
Yeah.
And thought exchange, and thought manipulation, and psychological manipulation. But no work happens in the world where we live.
Yep.
Our body lives, at least. We connect, blah blah blah. But what we're trying to get, Skill Wallet is the only way to actually measure how much work anybody does, how much real work ever gets done.
Yeah.
Similar to what we just discussed with Phil in the past episode, I'm not saying we need to go break down the table that currently exists, where accountants are important right now, like lawyers are important right now, but we also need to acknowledge that there is a sunset period in the future for a lot of these thought and computer-based jobs.
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge it and figure out what that looks like, so that way we can keep moving forward together.
Interesting. So you think there's a shakeout coming, almost, where the people that just do nothing but think or transfer or do autonomous things that they're not actually moving any force over any kind of distance.
Yeah.
Those people are going to be out of jobs, and you're saying we need to look at some way to improve the job market in the future. How does the Skill Wallet change things?
I want to be very clear that their jobs have been and are important, and they absolutely serve a purpose as we have been developing, as we continue to develop new technologies.
Yeah.
It's absolutely essential. But in the same way that eventually, I don't know, we break from the umbilical cord that's attached to our mother and we go and fight on our own, it's like these have all been efforts to create this more self-sustaining system where we're not as
necessary,
involved.
but will have to go.
Yeah.
They were necessary. Yeah, it's like what got you here will not get you there.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
Hardest part today, I think, for our entire economy is that the people that are looking at making the decisions to implement these new systems are saying, well, my job's going to go away. Or Phil was saying, it's more about the prestige. It's like, well, anybody that's in love with a title, it's like, if your title goes away, why would they ever make a decision that points towards that?
So true.
Future? Yeah. What does Skill Wallet have to do with any of this? There has to still be a way. Gosh, we're going to talk about the whole future of the world in an hour. Sure. Well, just like I mentioned earlier, there's the Chinese system that exists today. That's pretty autonomous as far as the judicial system and basic legal practice and enforcement, which happens in social credit. their social credit starts more at a 0 baseline, and you can only lose credit. You can't like gain like a +2 or +3. You're just at 0, and that's the standard. And then if you jaywalk, you're -2, and if you smoke too close to an exit, you're -3. Blah blah blah. There's no incentives to actually do better.
Yeah.
There's only
Negative
reinforcement
incentives. Yeah.
if you do worse.
Almost.
I don't think America operates that way very well, or we don't operate that way. If we are capitalist at all, it's like we give you additional incentive to do better, or do more, or serve more people. So in the future, it's like the more physical work I put in, the more access I get.
Yeah.
Less of a cost thing and more of like access. You get more keys.
Yeah.
You get more keys to the town. You get more keys to cooler buildings and cooler things and that type of stuff.
So it's XP points.
Yeah, it's a video game.
Yeah.
We have been practicing these systems for 30 years now. Video games that keep track of you over time, and whether it's the Sims or Halo or Call of Duty, you earn more points, you get more access, you get cooler stuff. I mean, kind of works. Our money system today works kind of similar.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit adjacent, but if we're talking about...
Much more gameable with money. Much more subject to cheat codes.
Yes. Which new games are not.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, they've kind of eliminated a lot of the cheat codes. So that's another issue. Who spoke on this recently that I saw? Big time money player. Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Talking about the cashless system, and like, I'm an angel. I would never buy anything I'm not supposed to, or do anything I'm not supposed to. But whenever they have access to manage your money or control what you can buy, then one day they can cut off your access to food or drinks or blah 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 blah. And like, yeah, I think they can now anyway. Let's call it jail.
They could, yeah.
Yeah.
They really wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't like that those guys sell fear. Like why is everybody selling fear?
Yeah.
Blows my mind. Same with the gold bugs, right? You're talking about the folks that help wash it with you, and they're like, oh, we got to go to gold. I get this often from many people, who find one of these fear mongers out here talking about the system's going away, it's all gone. Let's take a step back real fast.
Yeah,
the guy. I have a little spiel here. The guy played by Christian Bale, who you mentioned. Name's Michael Burry.
Burry, that's what it is. Yeah.
Name's Michael Burry. He's very heavily followed in the finance world. He also has a Twitter. It's really funny. He'll hop on Twitter for a few months. His Twitter's called Cassandra, after the Greek god who predicts negative future events. Greek goddess or whatever. So his Twitter name is Cassandra. And he just gets on there and is just like, it's all going away. Everything's done. It's all done. And he does that still. And there's a story to The Big Short. And when you watch it, you go, oh, wow, that's crazy. He's awesome. He's good. The Wizziati, which is he's always been doing that, right? He has always been saying everything's going down. Everything's going to collapse. And yeah, he was right once. He was. I mean, he was in the news recently for putting like a $2 billion notion value put bet.
On water?
No. On the S&P and NASDAQ. This is like a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Put $2 billion in notion value, buying puts on those things, betting for the market to go down. And before that, he just had some puts expire, I think, in the summer that he did the year before or whatever. So people watch what he does. And you can see his portfolio. It's open. Everybody can go look at what he's got in his portfolio. I know in that movie it says water, and not quite true anymore. But my point to this is it's very much the same with the fear mongers with the gold bugs. They've been saying it for a very long time. Very, very long time. And they're going to keep saying it for a very long time. And they may be right someday. But you cannot put your faith in that when they're just always saying it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, anyway, that's just a digress besides the point thing. Where were you going?
On point. Talking about what the new table looks like.
Yeah.
Like, how do you sit in the middle of that like era or inflection point where I don't know the statistics, but there's definitely more people than ever before that only do work by being like this, which looks a lot like meditation.
Sorta, yeah.
Kind of like
Very
if
close.
you take away all of the twitching and the eating and drinking in the middle, it's like literally somehow someone stays still
For
many, many hours and the world changes.
That is weird, actually.
A lot of people do that now. And we're all, how do you equate this? I don't know. Like, I know, I'm sure I don't know how the pyramids were built, but say it took 150 years. It's like, once they were done with that, they stop, they move on. Like, you got to do something different. And so all I'm talking about is exploring
Where do you go next?
how to look at what's next. Yeah.
Yeah, get out of what you're doing and go to what's next before you overbuild on it and
You entrench it
yep,
too far, and then you're like,
then it's no getting out.
yeah.
It's interesting to try and pull people out of. It's just so hard to ask people for a pay cut or to give up what they're doing, even if it's good for them. Like this is the hardest part of, I think, doing what me and you do as day jobs, which is like we do a bunch of different projects. And I think it's very hard for us to look at a project and say, this has served me well. Thank you. I'm done. Because you get used to it, not knowing that if you just cut that off, you now will have capacity for something much, much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what people are doing is they don't want to cut off what feels good, even if what's on the other side, even if something like a skill wallet sits on the other side, that is just going to take them to the next level and give them so much more freedom. They don't want to do it. Weird.
Yeah. What is that? How do you how do you create the right incentive structure to make skill wallet easier to transition into? Go back to the prosperity paradox. Like, you can't push someone into using a cashless system. So it doesn't work very well, I'd say. I haven't taken a poll, but a lot of people who still want
Cash in the mattress.
cash in the mattress and a disconnected system to their personal finances.
For sure.
What's the right incentive or what's the right model to be like, with this connection, these benefits happen, and it might look like less dollars in your bank account, but if you also have to spend significantly less money, who cares? Like, I mean, if you want really big numbers in your bank account, like go live in China, and then it's like 5 million yen is like $500, but the number in your bank account looks huge. Sure, it's really a matter of numbers, but
it's an interesting question, and I just thought of the answer, an answer, when asked it. I've never really thought of it this way. How do you give your dog medicine?
Yeah.
How do you do it? What do you
hide
do?
it in a piece of cheese or peanut butter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've experienced this recently with a business venture that I participate in, where we created a very good service for people. We tried to sell the people the service directly, and nobody wanted it. Even though it's exactly what they need and exactly what they want, they did not want to pay for it directly. Turns out, if you just package it with a coaching package, with a year-long coaching package, which just a couple videos and yada yada, and then you put the thing that they need in there for free, they buy right away. So it's a element of sneaking the pill into the cheese, right? It's not a question of how do you get them to take the pill. It's what is the appropriate cheese, I think.
Yeah.
You know what
like
I mean?
In a prosperity paradox in India, they were trying to get people healthcare, so they made healthcare free if you got a cell phone.
Yeah, right.
Cell phone was the cheese or the
Yeah,
peanut butter.
exactly, exactly.
Same deal. So, what could possibly, like NFTs? I think took a crack at this. They said basically, if you buy in and you get this certain skill wallet fragment or key or this token, use the marketing terms, you get access to A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
At least that was with some of the monkeys. Like you got access to a series of parties
Club
around the countries and clubs, and yeah, so that's in concept kind of on the right deal, but I don't think it was applicable to a large enough audience to really make a difference. They tried to do the whole let's affiliate with some really big names, and
Yeah.
which works with deodorant and shoes,
Yeah.
but not with how people
Not community building.
not community building, and not with like building trust around like their finances and what the dollar bill is. Like you basically have to overcome trust that someone has in a dollar bill.
Yeah.
Which
That's
has
tough.
founding fathers and pyramids and in God we trust on it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very hard.
Yeah, backed by a very large military that's proved superiority and willingness to fight for you in many occasions. Like,
Yep.
how do you build more trust than that?
True. Very true. The skill wallet. What is the cheat? I don't know if this is a relevant answer, but somebody was talking to me about Lake Travis here does like an entrepreneurship program.
Okay.
And I was hearing about one of these ideas that these kids once did. And what they did was they made you remember like Chia Pet kind of things, those little things that you like fed your pet and stuff as a kid?
Are you talking about the things that grow plants out of their head, or the little digital
ones? Digital ones.
Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi.
Something like that. Yeah.
Things up, I guess. Conceptually, it was like that. What it was it was a wristband for kids with a little animal like that they could keep alive, but it tracked their location.
Okay.
And what they did was they paired it with a user interface on a computer or on a tablet so that it was like in a video game where they could see their little animal on a map.
Mm-hmm.
And that was them on the map, but it incentivized them because they thought that was their little animal following them around and being with them all the time, when really it was just them. It was just them being tracked. And so you almost video game it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? You almost make a video game of it for their skills or whatever, and let them live a role playing game somewhere on a computer where there's actual real life skills are applying to that, and they get access to cool things, whatever in the game. But really, what you're doing is just tracking them, and then you can start feeding them resume information and things. There's something about it there that I think is brilliant.
Okay. The technical side is you are tracking 100% of their life, but you're also giving them access to 100% of the data you collect.
Yeah, in a version that looks virtual, so it doesn't look like as boring as they think their life is.
Yeah, user experience design.
Mm-hmm.
Essential. But okay.
Like imagine like oh man, on my video game I'm kind of stuck on this. I'm stuck in this room and I have to like defeat this boss to get out. But in order to defeat the boss, I have to do 15 oil changes. And so it's like, you're going to go do oil changes so you can defeat the boss, see what's out on the other side of the room, and maybe it's cool. And maybe you get to meet up with friends and go do something, Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Your butt. Yeah, okay, or it's more like, I want to go fly one of those hydro jet packs in the lake.
Yeah.
And the quest is defeating 15 oil changes.
That's even cooler. Yep.
Complete the quest, do the hydro jet thing.
Yep.
In that scenario, people have no money, but they would amount experience where I imagine they can, instead of doing 15 oil changes, they do one brake replacement. I don't know. They fight one stronger opponent.
Exactly. And so you start getting them to video game and maybe business wise, there's some way that you coordinate with businesses to get a share of whatever the revenue is for the work that they do, and then you use that money to pay for experiences that they can have in real life or whatever. And then you start pairing that up with all of these like experience Airbnbs, and it's like, oh, you can go to a new level Airbnb, go slide down the slide that goes from the house into the pool and whatever, like go have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that ties together somehow.
There's definitely, this is where the testing inspection company said the big rub was with insurance. Is you'd have to find a way to prove to insurance companies that some people doing tasks were less risky than others.
How do you mean? By number of times they've done it, or like?
Well, there just no system exists today that does that well. The closest they use is in some instances for some high risk jobs, they will qualify you based on your health, but most jobs don't do that. Like, but yeah, a way to say it's like me, I'm 100% capable of like every single hotel, every Airbnb I stay in, you would not know I was there.
Yeah.
My cleanup fees got to be like minuscule.
The insurance.
So the insurance has also got to be lower because it's
Well, I mean, but just functionally, that's the insurance,
But that's
right?
the
For the person,
insurance.
that's the insurance. What's the cleaning fee? That's the insurance for that.
yeah.
So your insurance should be really, really low, but somebody else's could be
Yeah.
does the really big cleaning fee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so finding a way to also transfer that into the system to eventually calculate like this person is super, you call it reliable or responsible or whatever the measure is, but a risk factor score would also then determine, do we pay that person? Do they pay us for the opportunity?
So what level are you? That's how you figure out, like what's your rank? What's your level?
Yeah, and if you are too low of a level to even start doing things, virtual reality.
Yeah.
That's where it comes in. That's where virtual reality makes
Go
the most sense
practice.
to me.
Yeah, go practice.
Yeah. At least get up to a level that says we might let you try one oil change. And you know what? You're going to have to pay us to do that first oil change. You're going to have to pay us by going and cooking 10 batches of fries at Hat Creek Burger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just know this is going to work. And I think of my cousin, Colin, making fun of RuneScape back in the day.
I mean, yeah.
He says, I'm going to go in the forest and chop some wood.
Yeah.
So I just see an army of, functionally I see an army of people with VR headsets just chopping virtual wood.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, here's your axe. Go do it in real life now. And it's like, okay, well, I practiced.
Yeah. I mean, our world works like this today. It looks a little different, and people usually explain it a little more glamorous. But one guy in particular I know, he grew up when he was like 14, he started selling shoes. He sold shoes for 3 years. Selling shoes is a pretty low risk environment. I think you could skip the VR and go straight into selling shoes. But if you do that for 3 years, 4 days a week, I mean, that's at least 600 days, I would say, of doing that. A lot of XP. And then the next thing they're like, okay, hey, you can sell suits now. Once he got done selling suits, they're like, you can sell boats.
Or cars or whatever.
Once he got done selling boats, they're like, you can sell software. All right. But I mean, literally it's just leveling up of like the same very minuscule version of the process, just got slightly more complex than what the widget is. You just got more experience doing that same type of thing. So
interesting.
we could draw people's skill wallets today by hand. That's the unreasonably unscalable part. Like we could go and surmise with people like, oh, do you mow your own lawn? How many times have you done that? Do you do your own dishes? Do you clean your own house? We could go write it out. So the data is there and it is quantifiable. We just don't have a system to go and allow people to not have to do it themselves.
Yeah. I think too, there's probably an element of this where you start at young ages. I mean, the problem is.
So we're in the middle. Like I said, we're in the middle of this transfer thing where it's like us, we won't receive all the benefit of it. To say that this takes 15 to 20 years, it's like we'll be on the side where they're like having to convert our arbitrary resume into experience. But for the younger people, it's like they can, by the time they're 13, have access to
whatever they need,
all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think what we end up being the beneficiaries of is better hiring practices, which is our best benefit comes from using the data to decide who to do what for us.
Yeah.
We'll never benefit from tracking of the history of what we've done, but we will benefit from having people. We basically set the standard for the other side of the table, which is why do you trust this person?
Yeah, we'll have a lot lower risk factor when hiring or contracting out jobs, things to be done. people will be highly incentivized to do it as fast and as correctly as possible.
Yep. We need to execute it because, I mean, that's right now we have a generation of kids who are in school. They do not understand why school matters. Nobody ever really has, but now it's really getting bad. And so they're all out there doing different side hustles, different side gigs, whatever.
Yeah.
And they love games. And you really don't even have to pay them. Like, they will just go do it to be able to say that they've done it. So yeah, they could just go start acquiring skills for all kinds of stuff.
Let's go wallet. I did have another piece on where we talking about risk transfer.
Yeah.
The ultimate risk transfer companies in the world.
Yeah.
TIC companies.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
TIC, testing, inspection, and certification.
I would have said compliance, certification. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. There's a larger they've fiddled with a couple larger acronyms like ATIC and ATICT and all these other ones, but TIC, the longest standing one. They are, oh my gosh, I read some of their annual reports now, and all their titles are basically about we bring communities together and we help people get along is kind of like the highlights of it. Now, even though with their original jobs and how they started making revenue was they would take regulations or standards of ISO or like local governance standards and then apply those into companies and make sure they're being followed. So if I make chocolate or tortilla chips, they make sure that there's no fish in my tortilla chips. And if there is, I better state it and make sure that my people are working correctly and not letting hair fall into the minced chicken and blah, 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 blah. They do
quality assurance.
Quality assurance. There's a couple segments, smaller segments of their business that will go and actually test like still quality assurance, but like they'll test the metal on a offshore oil rig to make sure it's still up to standard for what an operating rig should be. They work across virtually every industry, every vertical, all countries. Yet not, whenever you say that term, I've actually never heard of one person that I've talked to that's been like, oh yeah, I know those companies. Like people do know, like if I say Underwriters Laboratory, you look on any electronic, just about, there's the brown little UL stamp. That means they're certified. Long story short, anyway, there's a big gray area that they operate in where they transfer risk out of companies by simply saying that they were there and then signing a paper to say they were present for something. Half the time, they're not even present.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Calling you out.
It's
Yep.
There's been a lot of work going into trying to get their people to be present for these things, but it's like first they were walking around certain sites and they were filling out paperwork. The individual figured out that they could just fill out the paperwork and go back to the office. Well, when that didn't work, they put a tracker in the car so that whenever it arrived on site, they knew that they were on site. And then people figured out, I can just sit in my car and smoke cigarettes and still fill out the form and then go back. So now they'd moved it to an iPad, and the iPad had a GPS in it, so they'd have to walk around. So now the people would just walk around with their iPad and listen to music or do whatever and then still fill it out later. It didn't make any sense. It was like, why? Anyway, so I would never say that those are the causes of any of our problems, but it is a clear indicator that they are transferring risk without actually doing anything to mitigate it.
Yeah.
And not in every case, but there's a fair bit of cases.
Maybe there's room for quality assurance of the quality assurance guys.
Or you could
TIC for TIC.
Or you could just help companies do their own TIC.
Yeah.
And say, cut out the middleman.
Forget those guys, yeah.
Yeah. My original thesis was, hey, TIC companies become a software company and basically find out a way to collect the data and develop your own AI models that test for the things that you currently do in person. They said that people are way more important, and I get it. There's a huge hurdle of what happens when you displace 3 million people jobs. You know, you go from being 500,000 person companies to 50,000 person companies. Like, what do you do with all those people? Once again, how do you create a sunset
Pathway for
period
them
for
to do
those jobs? So yeah, so and there's other cases where literally they just tell people what they should do, and then the people go do whatever they want. And they say that they met with the TIC company. For example, American food, things that get approved by the FDA, which if you've seen painkillers recently, you know that it's a very real issue. Wouldn't call it nepotism, but there's bribery and
There is.
incentives that put things in our markets that are not great.
Yep.
Same with them, where in America, they can even say that they had a TIC company
Quality assurance to test it
certify their report
about what they
did.
Yeah, that is.
So I make chicken nuggets. I hire TIC company A to look at my reports on my chicken nuggets. They certify that my reports look good, and then I tell you that someone certified my chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
That's how the food industry works in America today.
Yeah.
People say, oh, yeah, no, it's safe. It's like they check it. It's like, no. In America, you're only legally required to have your reports certified. And yes, you may have random inspections that happen once a quarter, but random's not that random in their system.
Not at all.
Yeah. Like by random, they say, oh, well, our randoms are selected on a random date where we must then notify you 21 days in advance of us appearing.
Yep.
Great terminology legally. I mean, sure, protects the heck out of the chicken nugget maker. And I'm literally saying chicken nuggets, not because that's
everything.
That's where I know the problem is, but chicken nuggets.
It's everything.
Yeah. And then if there is a problem, the TIC companies are backed by an insurance company that writes a policy that gives them deference of liability.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
interesting.
The insurance company is selling those. I can't remember what the instrument is called, but they're selling off those. I don't remember what it's called whenever you package up
Liabilities.
insurance
What?
liabilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then they sell them off to the stockholders. That way, if something does go wrong and they do have to pay out, it's like, well, the stockholders lost.
Well, they just do it through securities, right? So an insurance company. Yeah, that's very interesting. So my read of the situation, following the chain of thought, is they insure the TIC companies from any crazy events happening where the TIC companies end up being held liable. There's a premium that comes to them for that insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That premium is their net income, and that's what they distribute back as dividends to the shareholders to convince shareholders to buy stock in them, to give them the capital to maybe cover the cost of some kind of event for the TIC. But if they don't cover that cost and all the stockholders lose their money, yeah, it's back to the people eating the chicken nuggets who are paying for, paying for the system.
So why'd I go through all that? It's a big risk transfer circle.
It is.
Though.
It is.
You get the product. You want to feel good about the product. Company says, hey, we'll go through these steps to make you feel good, but we kind of want to be shady, so we're going to transfer the risk onto these people. These people are going to transfer the risk onto that group. And then that group's going to transfer the risk right back to some of you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
goes right back to our need for irreverence and not trusting the documents that come our way just because they come our way, or the reports that come our way just because they come our way.
Yeah.
I had an experience with this with the venture group that I partner with. There was it's a quality assurance problem where somebody invented a new chemistry to make new types of, a new way for making these molecules at volume scales. And they said, no, it works. Look, we have a third-party valuation that can certify that it works. You get a report from the third-party valuation. It's a one-page report. And it says, yeah, it had this much of this element, this much of this element, this much of this element. It's like, okay, what about you guys, though? Like, did y'all test this in a bathtub in your house? Or like, where did you test this? How come I trust you and your report and not somebody else's report? And so nobody has that irreverence. An investor in this company looks at the third-party report and goes, okay, yeah, there's a third party that did this. And that happens in a lot of places. So aside from the risk transfer, there's a way to manipulate and make it look like risk transfer. where let's say my company is looking to help another company raise money. We engage for something like that. And the other company's like, well, we don't know how much we're worth. It's like, well, there's kind of a conflict of interest with my company telling you how much you're worth. But I have another entity that I'm an owner in, and they can tell you how much you're worth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
so, how much of the TIC companies are owned by the companies that they're monitoring and observing. Much like in the 2008 element and the Big Short element, the rating agencies, how much were the rating agencies controlled by the banks that were
Yeah, they're just
requiring their ratings? They were
just trying to
the
get
rating agencies are TIC,
there it is. And so they say, well, yeah, basically whoever bids the highest for their approval, they give it to.
Yeah, why not?
Same deal. That's what hit me was that whenever the lady's sitting there and she's like, well, we just if we didn't do it, then they would go to our competitor. It was like,
I know that.
I was like, oh, so it's just this arbitrary measure that you give out to the highest bidder. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's a couple issues in here, and one, I don't want to dismantle all like third party quality assurance as being bad. I don't have any intention of like doing away with third party quality assurance. My desire is that we create something that at least makes it more even, or at least more quantitative and not qualitative based on who wants to pay me the most or who's my cousin or who's this or who's that. It's like, can we just look at quantitative stuff and just measure that and say yes or no? Is there anchovies in the chicken? Yes or no?
Good question.
Apparently there's anchovies in Great Value blueberry syrup sold by Walmart. Thanks for telling me, though. I mean, that's some good quality assurance right there. Like,
yeah.
I still got to read to make sure it's in there, but
yeah.
So
really, I think that's a responsibility that only the government can take. And the problem is the government doesn't have the money or the ability or the manpower to take it. And so because of that, they have to offload it to third parties.
Okay. Yes. So like, this is where the opportunity and the rub is. How can you create a system that's as prevalent as the government, but it's not owned by the government?
Got to be the decentralized kind of skill wallet type thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because it's kind of what TIC companies do today. So imagine I'm TIC company A. I operate in 168 countries. I operate across 14 major industries, and then I work with the top 10 people in each one of those industries.
Yeah.
So if we're talking airplanes, I work with the top 8 people that make airplanes.
Yep.
I talk to all of them. I know what they're all doing.
Yep.
I know all of their R&D. I know what size bolts they use. I know what works and what doesn't work across all of them. Like, they're not government, but they have that kind of spread.
Yeah, for sure.
So they have proved that type of system is possible. Question is, how do you make it
trustworthy or
corruption proof, digital, and more accessible?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the call out for a lot of this is citizen journalism kind of thing, right? Like independent journalism is sort of the call out for these types of things, translated differently. The guy who works with the top 10 planes, and you've talked about this before, top 10 plane companies, and the company that operates all of that.
Yeah.
If something goes south or something looks bad, that person's not going to tell all 10 people, hey, your planes are bad. Sorry, I'm failing you. You'd rather go to the government and be like, hey, we need to change this standard. And then, they change the standard to fit the mold, not the other way around. Only discrete and decentralized entities can call BS on that, right? Like I'm almost saying have random individuals be incentivized to go into the airplane hangars and take videos and be like, oh, this looks off. Why is nobody calling this out, right? Or like almost like what I haven't seen the painkillers, but almost like documentary people, like, you know, they just roll in places and they're like, hey, this smells off. Or they go get whistleblowers.
Well,
I don't know that, but
that's part of the sell of TIC companies. Not that they'll tell the government, but they will tell you when something is off.
yeah.
Now, the difficult part is that's where the corruption begins, because then they're not obligated to go tell someone else that what you're doing is
Sure.
off. They just give you this nice little feedback loop, and then they can either bury it or help you cover it up or present it in a way that's perfectly acceptable.
That's right. Let's kill the messenger. This is the same with auditors. This is what EY and all the big auditors of public companies do. They're going to look at you and say, it looks like you're cooking your books. And maybe they'll leave. Or maybe they won't say anything because you're paying them. You know, like whenever you're paying them, you're asking people to say, don't pay me anymore because what you're doing is bad. What's the probability they're going to do that?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Tough.
It is. So,
I don't know the solution, but this is good. And we'll have another risk transfer because there's so much on risk transfer. We need to have another episode on it. This is a good introduction of just like pointing out, it's irreverence, pointing out where are there things that, where are there weak points? We're not saying that there's anything bad there, but there are weak points.
Yeah.
And I have so many examples of them. It's basically the entire flow of money almost is just full of weak points places where people are like, but they said it was okay, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're out of time on this one, but we need to get into that.
Yeah, for sure. That makes me think about Team Taleb.
Yeah.
The game.
Yep.
What are you talking about? Well, I'll get back to it. I'm just going through my brief, like.
You're going to quote Nassim Taleb on the next one?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
All right.